It's a story so strange, it could only be true.
I think I can help you. The first thing I'm going to do is completely unethical. I'm going to give you a hug.
Inspired by real events, The Shrink Next Door shows how psychiatrist Dr. Isaac Hirschkopf, played by Paul Rudd, over a 30-year span manipulated his way into the life of patient Marty Markowitz, played by Will Ferrell.
We'll turn you into the man you truly deserve to be.
Living in his home, joining his family fabrics business.
This doctor's a little unconventional.
He's a miracle worker.
What is he doing here?
Even cutting him off from his own sister, played by Katherine Hahn.
He just has no boundaries, and I don't trust him.
Cut her out of your life. She's the only family I have.
The dark comedy is based on a successful podcast of the same name.
When you listen to this podcast, and it just feels unbelievable that someone could get, wrapped up in such a way and basically turn over his entire life to his therapist.
For Rudd, the challenge was bringing nuance to a shrink viewers probably won't like.
Feels good, doesn't it?
To try and find the parts of a character that make them human and empathetic and intriguing.
For Hahn, the tough part was figuring out how her character could have been iced out by her own brother, something the actress solved by meeting her real-life counterpart.
She really helped me find an essence and also an ethical North Star, because I was having such a hard time finding how I could find forgiveness for my brother if he had left me for 30 years.
The Shrink Next Door streams on Apple TV Plus beginning Friday.
Without trust, we have nothing. I trust you completely.
Celebrations on the streets of Managua after Nicaragua's President Daniel Ortega easily locked in a fourth consecutive term after suppressing political rivals in an election some called a farce, as Washington warned it would press for a return to democracy. Nicaragua's Supreme Electoral Council said that with roughly half the ballots counted, a preliminary tally gave Ortega's Sandinista alliance about 75% of the votes. But Western and many Latin American nations expressed deep concern about the fairness of the vote, as Ortega detained opponents and business leaders leading up to the election, canceled rival parties, and criminalized dissent. Exiled Nicaraguans living in Costa Rica blasted the results.
We are repudiating the electoral farce, the electoral circus of Nicaragua. We ask our relatives in Nicaragua, the families who are here, and the people in other places to protest against a government that has committed crimes against humanity, against our children, against Nicaragua, violating the human rights of the Nicaraguans.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said the United States was ready to use a range of tools, including possible sanctions, visa restrictions, and coordinated actions against those it said were complicit in supporting the Nicaraguan government's, quote, undemocratic acts. A statement by all 27 EU members accused Ortega of systemic incarceration, harassment, and intimidation of opponents, journalists, and activists. Cuba, Venezuela, and Russia, meanwhile, all offered him their backing.
Poland is closing a border crossing with Belarus. It says migrants have tried to force their way in. Video on Monday showed hundreds of migrants arriving at the Poland-Belarus border. Humanitarian groups say they face freezing weather and a lack of food and medicine. The European Union has accused Belarus of encouraging thousands of migrants from the Middle East and Africa to cross into EU countries. They claim it's a kind of hybrid warfare as revenge for Western sanctions on President Alexander Lukashenko's government. This follows Lukashenko's violent crackdown on protests after a disputed election last year. Polish authorities have accused Belarus on Monday of trying to spark a major confrontation and immobilizing soldiers. Lukashenko's government has repeatedly denied manufacturing a migrant crisis, instead blaming the West for the crossings and treatment of migrants. On Monday, Poland said it had withstood the first attempts by migrants to force their way across the border. Authorities say they will close the crossing at Kuznica on Tuesday morning. It is one of 3 crossings along the Belarus border. They say at least 7 dead migrants have been found on Poland's side of the border, with unverified reports of more deaths in Belarus. Neighbouring Lithuania also said it might introduce a state of emergency on its border with Belarus. Humanitarian groups accuse Poland of violating the international right to asylum by pushing back migrants into Belarus instead of accepting their applications for protection. Poland says its actions are legal.
A 16-year-old girl was rescued in Kentucky after using a hand signal from TikTok to appeal for help, according to local officials. The hand signal has the palm facing outwards and fingers closed around a tucked thumb, and it's been widely demonstrated across TikTok. It's meant to allow victims of abuse to tell someone they're in trouble without alerting the abuser. Deputy Gilbert Achardo said Monday the girl was sitting in the front passenger seat of a vehicle when she made the hand signals. Another driver eventually recognized the sign, called 911, and alerted law enforcement to intercept the car.
Had that not been transmitted by the young lady, had there not been someone out there that knew how to interpret what she was doing, then who knows, we may not have had a good resolution on this.
The girl was later taken to a hospital and reunited with her family, who live in Asheville, North Carolina. The deputy added that 61-year-old James Herbert Brick has been arrested and charged with unlawful imprisonment and possession of sexual material pertaining to a minor. The FBI is now involved and there may be additional charges.
Tears flowed, cameras flashed, and airline officials applauded as loved ones were reunited Monday at New York's John F. Kennedy International Airport.
It's been so emotional, and it has for millions of families all over the world, but this is the best thing that's ever happened to me. Thank you so much to everybody, to everybody.
Siblings, parents, and children hugged and cried, and new grandmothers met babies for the very first time after the United States opened its borders to vaccinated international travelers, lifting restrictions that barred much of the world from coming to the U.S. for more than 20 months.
Look at him, it's just, there's no words. You can't describe. How do you describe this feeling? You know? Yeah, look. It's such a joy, you know.
Bhavna Patel was on the first New York-bound British Airways flight leaving Heathrow once the ban ended, eager to meet her 1-year-old grandson Kai.
There's no words. I don't have any words.
For nearly 2 years, the unprecedented restrictions have prevented families from gathering in person to celebrate weddings, grieve at funerals, or welcome new babies.
It felt amazing to see them hugging and holding hands.
Patel's son, Kushal, said the family will spend their 10-day visit making up for their time apart.
I know how much it means to me to be able to hold him, and having them not be able to do that, it's been really painful. So I'm so glad it happened. I'm so glad it's real. It's amazing.